Today guys, we're going to do section A. We're going to start with the top lights, amber in color, properly mounted, they're not cracked, they're not broken, not missing any bolts or screws, and good working conditions. Then we're going to continue right here with the headlights. They're properly mounted, they're not cracked, they're not broken, not missing any bolts or screws, in good working conditions. Then we got the signal lights, properly mounted, no cracks, not broken, in good working conditions, not missing any bolts or screws. We're always going to check underneath for any leaks, wires or hoses hanging, or any flat tires, or the truck and leaning to one side to another one, meaning that is a suspension problem. Now we're gonna open the hood, we're gonna remove this, and then the other side, and then you're gonna pull the hood from here. Please do this, right here, and then from here. Now we're gonna go to the passenger side. Right here, you're gonna tell them that you have two belt-driven components. First one is the alternator, properly mounted, no cracks, bends, illegal welds, not missing any bolts or screws, electrical wires coming in and out, in good working conditions. Your second belt-driven is the fan clutch, properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, not missing bolts or screws, in good working conditions. And then we have the blades. Fan clutch blades, properly mounted, they're not cracked, they're not broken, in good working conditions. And then is our bell. Properly mounted, in no working conditions, doesn't have any cuts, cracks, tears, allow no more than 3/4 of an inch of play. Then we have our hoses, they're properly mounted, they don't have any cuts, cracks or tears, no leaks, in working condition. This is our washer fluid reservoir, properly mounted, it's not cracked or broken, in working conditions. Check daily to make sure it's at the proper level. Then right here we have our electrical wires, they're properly mounted, in good working conditions. Please make sure that you always have them away from the hot parts and moving from the engine. We continue with the section A. We're going to the driver's side. Right here, you're gonna tell them that you have one more belt driven, which is the water pump, properly mounted, no cracks, bends, or welds, not leaking any water, not missing any bolts or screws. And then you're gonna point right there in the middle, you're gonna tell them that underneath the cabin, you have two gear driven components. The first one is the air compressor, which is properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, not leaking any air, not missing any bolts or screws. Attached to the air compressor, you have the governor. The governor, it's properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, in working conditions, lines coming in and out, not leaking any air. And then you have your second gear driven, which is located underneath the cabin too, which is the power steering pump. It's properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, not leaking any fluids, in good working conditions, not missing any bolts or screws. After that, I go to my oil fill, properly mounted, no cracks, bends, illegal welds, cap is on, is off, in good working condition. Then this is the oil dipstick, properly mounted, no cracks, bends, illegal welds. Check daily to make sure it's at the proper level. And then I go to my water or coolant reservoir, properly mounted, it's not cracked, not broken, not missing any bolts or screws, in good working conditions. Check daily to make sure it's at the proper level. After that one, we go into the power steering reservoir fluid, properly mounted, it's not cracked, not broken, not missing bolts and screws, lines coming in and out, not leaking any fluids. After that, we go towards steering and linkage. Steering linkage, we start with the steering column, properly mounted, no cracks, bends, illegal welds, in good working condition, not missing bolts or screws. And then this one is the steering column boot, properly mounted, it's not cracked or broken, in good working conditions. This one right here is the steering box, properly mounted, no cracks, bends, illegal welds on it, not missing bolts or screws, not leaking any fluids. This one right here is the pitman arm, properly mounted, no cracks, bends, illegal welds, in good working conditions. You have a set of castle nut and cotter pins. This one right here is your drag link, properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, in working conditions. And then right here you have your steering arm, properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, no missing bolts or screws, in working condition. Another set of castle nut and cotter pins. After that, we go to our suspension. Suspension, we have the hanger, properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, in working conditions, not missing any bolts or screws. Then we have the leaf springs, properly mounted, no cracks, bends, illegal welds. They're all present, none of them are missing. And then this one is the U-bolts and shackles, properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, not missing any bolts or screws, in working conditions. And then we have our shock absorbers, properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, in good working conditions, not leaking any fluids. After that, we go to our brake system. Right here, we got the brake chamber, properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, in working conditions. The lines coming in now, not leaking any air, not missing any bolts or screws. This one right here is our push rod slack adjuster, properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, good working conditions. Allow no more than 1 inch of play. And then we're gonna point right there in the middle. We have our brake drums, which is properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, no grease or oil. You have to have at least 1/2 inch of life. Then we have the brake pads, properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, no grease, oil, or crystallization. You have to have at least 1/4 inch of life. And then we move on here. We have our hub seal, properly mounted, no cracks, bends, illegal welds, in working condition, not leaking any oil. This is our lug nuts, they're all present, properly mounted, no cracks, bends, illegal welds. Check for shiny threads because of indication of looseness. This is my rim, properly mounted, no cracks, no bends, illegal welds, in working conditions. Right here we have the air stem, properly mounted, in working conditions, not leaking any air. And then we go to our tire. You're gonna divide it in 3 sections: inflation, condition, and depth tread, ICD. The tire is inflated to the manufacturer specification, which is written around the tire. The condition, you're gonna have cuts